Everyone, welcome to another Damien Conversations. This episode, we have Jay from MILAT and Innercity Uprising. What is it, 6 a.m. currently?
Yeah, about 5 minutes to. I'm feeling it.
Yeah, you are. We've been trying to do this for a little while. We made a few passes at it, and third time's a charm. So thanks, everyone. And I guess we'll just get into it. So you and I have talked a handful of times in regards to like your background. You have an Italian background. Was it your grandparents? Was it your grandparents that relocated to Australia originally?
Yeah. After the Second World War, yeah. I'm glad they did the place.
So just I guess just get into like, what kind of music that you discovered first, and like what it was, if there's any specific acts or periods of time that influenced you the most as you were getting into things.
Yeah, all right. No, well, look, I'm a bit of an old arsehole. Nearly 50 years. Actually, I am 50 years old this year. Look, I grew up in the 80s, so, there's a lot of pop music around. Duran, fucking Spandau Ballet, all that sort of crap. My parents just didn't really get into music. They were really, really strict. My dad was really strict, one of those violent old Italian men that just thought hard work was the only way to go. Should leave school at 13 and become a bricklayer or do some heavy labor, that sort of idiot. My mum was a school teacher, which was pretty cool, thank fuck. Otherwise, we would have been all brain dead. And look, they bought a stereo in the 70s, a really high-end stereo, and we got excited, or I got excited. Like, I was only little. This would have been before I was 10 years old, and cool, we're getting this big stereo. And it got put away. We never saw it again. I actually inherited that stereo about 10 years ago, or, in the 2000s, brand new, this 70s, amazing turntable. But yeah, we never had music in the house. My mum used to sing. If she was singing, you knew she was happy. I can't remember what songs she used to sing, but my old boy was like really strict. He didn't give a fuck about nothing. It was work, one of those pricks.
Yeah.
And look, I remember listening to the radio and taping shit off the radio, and stuff like that. And but the big things for me were local bands like the Angels and Rose Tattoo. They were like, Rose Tattoo was like a tough street at the time. We called them a metal band, but now you listen to them, they're almost like a blues band, rock and roll blues band in a way,
Mm-hmm.
We only had we had very, very few TV channels, 3, 4, 5 channels tops on TV. So a lot of access to TV was pretty small. I remember mentioning it to you that one of the big things highlights to me was seeing the Alice Cooper Welcome to Your Nightmare full show on it was on a New Year's Eve, long time ago, years and years ago. And I was like, oh wow, what's this shit? You saw the Sex Pistols, you saw Kiss,
Sure.
And then I grew up in an area where it was mostly Australian kids. I was a bit of an outcast, being Italian, copped a bit of grief. But and to fit in, we had this group. I lived in a small suburb called Milperra, near a river and shit. Like, Sydney's real small. It's not like the States. It's tiny place. And we had this gang called the Milperra Maidens. They all wearing the early Iron Maiden heat transfer jumpers to school.
Yeah.
There'd be fucking heaps of them. Like, you'd go on the school bus. If you didn't have one, you got your head kicked in. Like, you had to go out. Even if your mum hated it, you had to sneak out and get one. So I got into that. It started with Iron Maiden. That was still there was that Kiss thing, but Iron Maiden set it off. I went to the early Power Slave tour. Then it came, just that new wave of British heavy metal shit we all got into. I remember seeing Dio in 1986, Twisted Sister. And I listened to glam rock as well at the same time,
Sure.
I loved all that shit. I love Motley Crue.
Really, Motley Crue's good. I love those first 2 albums.
I love Motley
really
Crue, man. Yeah,
they're so raw, like, and plus, like that music was being written from the perspective of the bassist. Like, Nicky was writing a lot of those songs too. So,
you listen to Too Fast for Love. It's a pretty shabby recorded record. It's a great punk record, I reckon, at times. It's like
it's pretty raw. It's awesome.
Lowbrow. Yeah, it's great. But yeah, it's sort of the traditional way of getting into music. Sort of meeting a few people. But yeah, the area itself, it was funny where I lived. It really, that gang, the Milperra Maidens, that's where it all sort of came. It was spray painted on the local shops. It was spray painted in the school. And then one year, the principal got up and said, "That's it. Iron Maiden shirts are banned at school," because it was everywhere, you know. But you weren't really officially part of a gang. Like there was dudes wearing them that I didn't even know who the fuck they were, you know.
Yeah.
But everyone had to. If you didn't have one, you know, you're a target, you know. And everyone had long hair, so it was a weird place to live. But yeah, it was cool, and that was really the introduction into music as a whole. Then, you know, the usual thing, buying record collecting, looking at, you know, records, going, oh yeah, who's this band? Sodom. I better go and try and find a Sodom record next week. You know, just that usual progression through albums.
Was there a record store in Sydney that you frequented when you were younger or in your teens?
Yeah, we were quite lucky. We had a few. We had like downtown. There was probably 3 or 4 really, really cool record shops. One was called Waterfront Records. They ended up doing like you know, signing, licensing Nirvana records, for instance, early Bleach. You know, so that sort of independent grunge sort of shop. I actually got to work in one at the tail end, a pretty famous one called Phantom. I sort of worked there as a Sunday manager, probably for the last year or two that it was open. It was really dwindling. Like we weren't even buying any new stock. We were just existing, you know.
Oh, sure.
That was the era where record labels sort of, they're all shut. Basically, it's really, really hard now to get you basically cannot go record shopping in Australia anymore. You know what I mean? There's a slightly new lot of modern record shops popping up, but there wouldn't be a specific like punk record shop anymore, or even secondhand records are really hard to come by. You know, we used to go record shopping and just flick through secondhand records for hours and hours. You know, Septic Dev $6, SPK $3. You know, Metallica first pressing, you know, $8. You know, but now that's over.
Oh, for sure. I mean, purchase with just like having just online markets of any form like eBay and everything else where you can, where it's like specific to like certain genres too, you know, where it's like cranking up the costs of these old records for sure.
Oh, you know, we did it religiously for years. Like I did it for like, I wouldn't say 20 years, but at least 15 years. Yeah. You know, at least every second weekend, if not every weekend. Because I lived pretty close to downtown, as we call it, as you guys would call it. I lived in the fringes of the city, so I could just walk into the CBD in half an hour, and there you are. And you know, we go in groups of guys. You know, all the punks. We were a bunch of punks. We'd all get together, 10 of us, and hit the shops. You know.
Yep.
And that was like a ritual that went on for years and years. But yeah, those days are over. So,
so I guess
the good old days.
Yeah, no shit. So I guess going from like getting into like standard stuff like, you know, rock, hair metal, Maiden, into punk, and like going to like record stores. When did you eventually start getting into a little bit more obscure things that would eventually lead up to something that would sound like MILAT?
Oh, I think along the way, it's funny because in Sydney, there just seemed to be heaps of records. Like there was only so many record shops, and they just seemed to have heaps of shit. So, and one of the early, you know, everyone knew or everyone had heard of SPK living in Sydney. Like we grew up in the Newtown area where they performed a lot of shows. So we sort of had that, already knew that was going down. Never got to see him or anything like that. But, you know, you'd go through the record shops and you'd go, oh, wow, look at this fucked up front cover, you know, $3, an early SPK record, take it home, play it, hate it, and just go, oh, what the fuck is this? You know, I'm looking for Black Flag or Agnostic Front, and, you know, I'm blasted with some SPK, and I'm like, no, that's shit, you know. So you shelve it, you know. But, you know, 6 months later, you see another one, oh, it looks cool, the cover. So I think, it's funny, I think a lot of punks in Sydney, a lot of the older punks actually have a noise collection. And it all started from buying SPK records, because I wouldn't say they were everywhere, but it was one of those bands you knew. Mm-hmm. And it started there, you know, and Throbbing Gristle was a big band as well. You know, you go to any punk's house, they've got those 2 bands in their collection at least, you know, and then the White House, you know, the essential stuff, you know. But yeah, from there, look, I dragged those records out later in life, and I started listening to more artist noise stuff, you know, not harsh noise. People that get paid money to make noise. I don't know why, because it sounds the same, and that's where it sort of kicked off for me a few years ago again. And then I dragged out the old records, and I had a little bit of a moment in a children's hospital once. One of my kids were in there. He had an allergic reaction to a vaccine that he had to have, and he's in hospital for a while, and I was sitting in hospital at like 4 o'clock in the morning. It's really drab. There's this little bit of light coming through the door. I remember it vividly, and I started Googling some. I thought, you know what, it's a good sound. This is a good theme for a soundtrack to listen to some noise. Let's get into it, you know. So I started Googling, come across this Australian artist, Themi Soddle. You know, she's pretty cool. She it's all her noise is related to mental health, and she's done a PhD in mental health. She's become a doctor in the field and written a lot of paperwork. And I'm listening to it, and you know, it's okay. And then one minute I just get scared the fuck out of me, you know. There was this one drop in it that just, I was like, what the fuck, you know. and I'd always, backtracking a little bit, I'd always collected noise instruments and synths. You know, I've got a massive collection of pedals, synths. I bought this shit before I even knew what I was doing with it. I used to fuck around with beats, but I was no good at programming drum machines. My brain doesn't. I can't do that sort of shit. So you know, I've gone through all those Korg machines and that when I was young, Monotribes, Atari Punk, you know, noise generator. So I had all this shit. And like I said to you before, like I had a collection of all these Zoom recorders, you know, and same thing. I used to be able to record 4-track cassette player, anything that's digital. I look at it and freak out. By the time that hospital stay was over, I'd already planned in my head that I was going home the next day or whenever my son got out, pulling out my Zoom 8-track and started up this my first noising electrosurgery noise unit, which was a name I'd had for a long time. Again, I was going to sort of make it a more, beforehand it was supposed to be playing a more minimal dancey sort of thing, but like I said, I was no good with the drum machine. So, and you know, that's where it took off for me, you know. Again, that was a few years ago now. I started doing that by myself, not knowing if I was, you know, who the audience was going to be or if anything was going to happen. And it started to happen, you know. And the beautiful thing about the noise scene that I really like is that, you know, I approached some, heavy hitters and I did some splits, you know, like Government Alpha, Black Leather Jesus, Torturing Nurse, you know, and I'd been in punk bands my whole life. Like I can't ring up Parkway Drive and say, hey, let's do a split, you know, it doesn't happen. But then you get all these cool noise guys that are on top of the game and they'll help you out, you know. So I found it, I was like, oh, wow, this is fucking awesome. And yeah, I wouldn't say the rest is history like they say, but yeah. And then, you know, we just ran from there. And MILAT was a natural progression. You know, I wanted power electronics. I wanted something more heavy. My stuff was more experimental. I use guitars in that. I use all sorts of stuff. But MILAT, I just wanted something, you know, hard hitting, like something that was just going to blow your head off with, you know, a narrative over the top as well. Like some, you know, and that's just how it started, you know. I got the two biggest punk arseholes in Sydney to help out, and yeah, it's happening. But now we're about to about 6 or 7 people in that. We call it a collective now. You know, we're getting all you know.
You can pull from your pool of individuals.
Yeah. You know, we got a gig. Who wants to turn up? 3 people might turn up. 7 might turn up. We've got guys in the band. We call it a band, but we've got guys in the act that we hardly even know. Like one guy just turned up once. I organised a noise fest, I think 2 years ago. He saw MILAT and goes, I love MILAT. Can I come and do something, you know? And
that's cool.
He's a resident weirdo. We've got a couple of resident weirdos.
Weirdo, totally. Make him wear a special shirt.
Yeah,
put the uniform on.
He should do that. We've got one dude who's a bank robber. Like he's an old bank robber, and I'd never met him before. You know, he'd been around the scene for a long time. I just never crossed paths with him. You know, he just wanted to stand there. Robber? Beg pardon?
Did you say he was a bank robber?
Yeah, he's an old bank robber. You know,
that's amazing. I bet he has crazy stories.
Yeah, oh mate, he's out of control. Yeah. He just wants to turn up, get nude, and you know, or not nude. He gets in his underwear and just hang around. You know,
that's the guy who wears like the spiky mask. Okay, all right, okay, I believe it.
Yeah.
He looks like he's got some prison tattoos. Definitely.
Yeah. He went out and got a MILAT tattoo. And I was like, fuck, dude.
That's awesome. So so when did you start the label with Innercity Uprising, or was it just you, or did you do it with a few people? Was it while you were doing punk and more hardcore stuff?
Yeah. Look, the labels had a couple of name changes. I think I've been doing the label since about 96.
Okay.
It used to be called Snapshot Records. back in the day, it was pretty popular. I started off with a couple of compilations of basically the who's who in Sydney and other states at that time that was like big sellers, back in the day when you could make 1,000 compilation CDs, I'd walk around town just with like 20 CDs in my bag and sell them for $5 each. By the time I went record shopping on a Saturday morning, they'd all be gone, It was back in those days. So I started then, changed the label name a couple of times through the years. It went to Straight Up Records once. And then it just morphed into Innercity Uprising probably about eight years ago, maybe now. We're going to keep it at that name. That's it,
Yeah.
So it's been going for a while.
And is it primarily you, or did you have anybody else who?
No, I've always done that on my own. I have worked with other labels. Con, who's in MILAT at the moment, he used to do a label called Barcode the World.
Okay.
And we used to do a lot of splits, and he had a van. So back in the day, we basically take a stall to every show that we could get to on the weekend, back in the day. That was for him, that was his job. I was still working. I used to be an aircraft engineer back in the day, but it was just to make a bit of pocket money and keep the label going, But it was back in the day where you could take 500 CDs to a show and come home with 200 or 300, You'd sell heaps of them. Now, fuck, those days are over, as we all know.
I'm glad people are buying physical copies. I mean, I know it's not like how it was where I remember like a common pressing of like CDs or vinyl would be 1,000 or 2,000 copies for some folks,
Right.
like if you're doing a run where it's going to be distributed to, a number of stores, like that was just common. Didn't even flinch at it,
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, work with what we got, right?
Now I get scared when a band says, "Oh, can we press 100 copies?" I'm like, ooh,
I know, right? You're like,
maybe.
Yeah.
It's tricky with COVID too. With COVID, we used to have economy air, so I could send a cassette tape to the States for $8.
Yeah.
Now that's been scrapped. Everything's at a premium, so it's international first class mail only with tracking. So for me to send a cassette to the States, it's $24.
It's a bit.
So it's killing me. Hey, so anyone on Bandcamp, if you want anything from me, hit me up direct. I'll do you a deal.
Yeah. We've been and like through when you would do orders and other people from Australia would do orders and just doing any kind of business like that. If you picked up some stuff for like just distroing, there's been even just like some average or regular recurring customers in Europe and such that they're buying so many things that they just ask like, hey, can you take this order that I have and then like whatever you do for the next two, just pile it together and we can just like, and we totally encourage that. It's just like trying to work anything you can just to get some, people from overseas to make it worth their while. I mean, I remember because like we were talking once before, like I was just going to order a MILAT badge. I was like, I'll get this and a cassette. And I had to think about it for a minute because it was like $24. I was like, fuck, I got to spend $30 on this. I'll think about it. So
it's fucked up, man. It's killing us, but it's been cool here in Australia, where everyone got given some COVID supplement money. And for a little while there, during COVID, the label was actually going great guns. I was working from home, and spending all night packing orders, and we had a heap on, It's toned down again now. But once during COVID, it was like, fuck this. I thought we could go under, or no one's going to buy anything, and I was like, oh wow, it's been really good,
Yeah, I was kind of concerned myself because we had a little bit of a slow start last year, just in general for the label. I was only getting like one release out a month, maybe a month and a half, and I was like, anyways, like, and it was just things were just moving really slow. But by like probably like June, almost into July, like all of a sudden it just changed. And I'm sure some of it is attributed to like certain releases, but like I've noticed that there's been more people following and there's been more common purchases or regular purchases rather. So, I don't know. I'll see how long it lasts, as long as someone's buying stuff, that means that I can do another release. So
it's one of those things. It's a labor of love.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. I mean, definitely, there's definitely a lot of hours spent, but it's, what else would I be doing? Sitting around playing video games or some shit, like it's, so it's something, but, did any of this tie in with doing the label with MILAT? Like, is it like kind of like a base for MILAT to put stuff out, or do you try to keep it separate?
Oh, look, it is. The label's morphed into like basically a punk metal noise label, from strictly starting off as like a hardcore punk sort of label. The last 4 years, say it's more that people they're not sure what they're going to get. You know what I mean? I
like
might
that.
do
That's cool.
I might do 3 releases of noise in a row, much to the punk rockers' dislike, and then I might do 6 punk records. You know what I mean? I don't know what's going to come. Because I do short runs and CDRs. It's lucky. I'm lucky that I have the opportunity to I might wake up and go, okay, I've got 3 options this week. The CDs are printed. What am I going to put together? I'm always putting pieces of paper in cases, you're putting shit together.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, I'm going to put this out. I do have a bit of a backlog, actually. I've still got a couple of tapes from last year I haven't released yet. I just did one this week for Straight Panic for Tom. I've been sitting on that for a while.
I saw that one.
Yeah, it's stuff that I've got a garage full of shit, I did another noise act last week, I think it was, called Shallow from Melbourne. Again, I've had them CDs in the garage made for 6 months, ready to go. There's just always something, I'm always trying to pick the right time to drop a release. And
I hear you.
And then sometimes I'll go, oh, fuck, I've missed out on that one, and it pushes back. But yeah, the labels, it's just a mix match, I've put out some, I love everything. I love death metal, grindcore. I've got some techo death metal, technical death metal stuff coming out soon, from old band from, 10 years ago that's dug up a really awesome demo called Rotten Shop. I do a lot of nostalgia stuff as well. Like I'm always looking for old bands from the 80s, that maybe not always the bands that had albums out at the time. They might have only had demos. They might have been smaller support sort of bands, but I'm always trying to dig out that sort of stuff so the kids can hear it now. Because I try and make everything a free download as well, unless I put the release out on vinyl, which then, because it costs so much. Yeah. It's you buy the vinyl. I won't even give a free download card. Fuck it. I say you just buy the vinyl, you know what I mean? I just dropped one last week, a band called Magnesite, really good power violence band from 96. And look, it sold out in 4 hours, between me and another label. We only had 100 copies on LP.
That's cool.
Yeah, and bang, it was really good, and we've got a bit of this year we're going to be doing a lot of vinyl, but it's all old classics, mostly from the 90s of punk albums that, came out on the CD format or on tape back in the day.
Okay.
I think we've got about 8 or 9 lined up. Yeah.
The
Plus whatever else. Yeah. Cool. They're all excited about it. They're all the bands that we kept it secret, because, but we've got 8 or 9 hooked up. We've got one at the pressing plant now. We released one last week. So yeah, it's going to be a big year for us in the punk stuff. But in the meantime, I'm still going to put out, my 15 tapes of this and 30 tapes of that and the small shit,
Do you go through a place for duplication, or do you do kind of a mixture of getting them pro dubbed and home taping, or do you avoid home taping completely?
No, I've got the cassette deck. I've got myself all set up because in Australia it's quite expensive. Like, we've got to buy our blank tapes from Dupe Shop. I think they're in Canada.
Duplication.ca.
Yeah, that's the only people we get them from, and they've actually got a branch here in Australia.
Oh,
plus but it's just they're just a broker. They've got to import it in. Plus, there's another guy in Melbourne called Dex Audio that actually, it's an old manufacturer that's rehashed and they're making tapes again. But you're talking big money, you're talking a few bucks to make a tape. So I'm a scrounger. Like I'm always looking at eBay. Like the other day I bought 700 brand new C30 tapes. They are beautiful. They're just off some guy that had them from 20 years ago. I'm always looking for that sort of those old stocks.
Yep.
I've got a string of the same tape deck that I use, that I keep them serviced and do the home dubbing. Same with my CDs, like I said, back in the day, I'd get them pro pressed, make 500,000. Nowadays, I get pro CDRs, pro printed, so they look really smick. They look like a really good CD.
Yep.
And I've got the burning towers, you know what I mean? And bang, bang, bang. My packaging's different again. I don't use traditional CD packaging. I use like a shortened DVD case that has the plastic slip, so you can put a double-sided printed insert.
Yep.
It's cheap. When I first did it, I thought, I wonder how this is going to work, but people have taken to it. I actually got the idea from a Bizarre Uproar CD that I got from Sweden.
Okay.
I ordered this CD, and I was like, oh, what's this packaging? I was like, wow, this is really cool. It's cheap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's light. The whole thing. Just to reinvent the label, really. To keep it going, make it relevant.
Yeah.
And it's taken off. It's been good.
Do you have any forms of distribution, or do you go through like a handful of labels, or?
Nah, now that I'm doing small runs, I just do it all myself. Like back in the day when I'd press CDs, I'd always send some to Maximum Rock and Roll, and depending, because I did a lot of street punk back in the day when street punk was big. So I'd send heaps of 100 copies of this to Germany. I'd be trading like I had thousands of CDs. I had a big distro at one stage, but with CDRs, I'm not going to trade CDRs. I don't want CDRs to sell, and I do occasionally. I'll say to someone, look, they're only CDRs, and they'll go, yeah, that's cool. Send us half a dozen, and we'll send you half a dozen of our CD.
Cool.
So, and I help a lot of bands out. Like I've been around the scene for a long time, so a lot of guys say, hey, Jay, we're just about to drop a 7-inch. They got nowhere to sell it. There's there's one shop in city that might take it on consignment. So it's really difficult. So, and I'll go, yeah, I'll put it up, and I might sell 10 that night, sometimes 30 copies that night, but then that's it. 2 days later, I never sell another copy. It's weird like that.
Sure.
People jump on it, buy a few, and it's over.
Yeah. Some stuff will just sit sometimes. They'll see it at this low number and it just let it hang out for a while. And then someone finally buys it, and then people like, oh shit, I should have got that. Like, why didn't I get that? It happens all the time.
It's weird, like, I don't know, because I've had the label for so long. I've just seen the trends. So yeah, now it's hard to sell stuff, So that's why we pump out so much as well. And it's short runs, The most I do I will do 100 of CD of an act. I've got Tone Generator from SPK's doing a solo album, and I'm actually going to be doing that. That's going to be 100 copies. Again, you don't know if they're going to sell or not. You know what I mean? Like, Australia's a small place. The dollar's good, but like we said, the postage is fucked. So it's going to be tricky. Yeah. But it's working. It's because it's such small amounts. I can afford, if it doesn't sell 1 week and I want to put a few bucks in for my pay at work, it's only a small minimal outlay to get the next one going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it sort of worked like that.
So you mentioned you have some like more vinyl records coming out this year for the label. So when it comes to MILAT or any other projects, do you have any plans right now? Because I know in Australia it's a lot different. Like you can have like small gatherings in certain spots, like or small type shows or something like that.
Yeah, we have sit down shows. We're allowed venues are allowed something like at the worst it was like 1 person per 4 square meters. So I don't know how they fucking work that out. Like, I don't think they put squares on the floor. I'm not sure. I've never been to it. I've been to live streaming events where we've hired out a rehearsal room and live stream, but through COVID, I haven't been to a gig.
Yeah.
I refuse to go to one of these sit down gigs. They sound shit,
Yeah.
But it's been an opportunity for all these bands to have sold out shows. They've all sold out. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, no shit. Someone walks by and if someone walks by on the street and you reach capacity, like, get out of here.
It's a pretty funny time in Australia. I've got guys, my mates in bands going, hey, we sold our show out. Like, yeah, cool. 22 band members, you're allowed 28 people in the venue, you fuckwit.
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
I haven't been to any shows, but we're now at a stage where in Sydney you're allowed to have 50 people at a gathering at home. Last week it was 30. This week it's 50.
50 people at a house?
50, yeah. So that's fucking awesome. And MILAT's got a house party coming up in April.
Wow.
It's the first time we're going to play it in a year. Yeah, we're pumped for it. We've actually got another show coming up as well. We've been asked to play in an art gallery with me and Con we call him Bin Laden because he looks a bit like Bin Laden. He's a Greek guy, but he looks a bit Arabic. We've always called him Bin Laden. Me and him have an art show that we're supposed to do a MILAT show at the same time. And
Yeah.
the beautiful thing is I've never done art in my life, like not once. And I just said, yeah, let's have an art show. I'm going to have an art exhibition because I like doing things that I've never done before.
Sure.
So I've got a few vials of my own blood and I'm going to do some art with it. I don't know, some stupid, G.G. Allen inspired rubbish, Hey, kitty cat. And I love cats.
Murphy. Yeah, he must
Big Al Murphy. And yeah, we're just trying to. But you know what? It's getting pretty cool here. The noise stuff. I wouldn't say that MILAT's kick started up because it's always been here underlying somewhere. But we've definitely brought out a few more noise acts within the punk scene. And dudes want to have a crack and. I've been doing a few projects with different vocalists because I go, Jake, can you make us some noise? I want to scream over something that you do, Yeah. So there's been a few cool things. And this other act I'm in at the moment, Scrubber, which is it's again a power electrics, but my wife does the I call it narrative because she's more talking about domestic violence and stuff. Mm-hmm. We're actually playing a show with they're called the N Project, and again it's got tone generated from SPK, so we're a little bit excited about that. Could be a sit-down show. I haven't looked into it. I will be upset if it is, but who knows? It's in a few months, so we don't know what's going to happen. Hey, anything can happen in Australia. If we get 2 cases, we're basically locked down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're really proactive here about keeping it under wraps. But our 1 minute we'll have 50 at a house show. Next week it could be fucking 20. You know what I mean? Yeah. We don't know what's going to happen. So.
Yeah, cases here are going down really well, which is nice. I mean, there's still issues more in more densely populated areas, like New York and California, Florida. But the rest of the US, I mean, it looks like there seems to be at least light at the end of the tunnel,
Yeah,
and
good.
There's some predictions. It varies depending on what study or what doctor, but it sounds like they're hoping for herd immunity by sometime this fall or even summer. But
beautiful.
Yeah. And they said there could be a little bit of a flare up over the winter, and then next year could be kind of the closest to some form of normal, so to say, with the exception of this summer. But I mean, baby steps. I mean, last year was interesting, was just a disaster. It's just someone would look away and it seems like someone would pour more gasoline on the fire, oh yeah. But
for us in Australia, it's really died now. COVID, obviously, I'm not sure how it's in the States, but COVID was the only news report for 6 months there. That's it, And ours was sort of like we had one state, we're 7 states, they're all tiny. I don't know how many. We've only got 28 million people in the whole of Australia. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So one of our states, Melbourne or Victoria, they got hammered. They had we got worried. They had maybe, I don't know, 600 deaths or something. Yeah. And that's basically it for Australia. We might have had 800, 900. We might have cracked 1,000. I'm not sure. I didn't keep up the date but we look at the states and go, fuck, these guys have got so many thousands of cases every day, And,
yes. Yeah.
And it was scary for us.
We would say an X amount of 9/11s happened today,
Yeah.
And just the normalization of it. But that's when it, it gets a little more nuanced, and some people will be like, well, the people who are kind of more the naysayers are like, well, actually, there was all these underlying conditions, and it wasn't truly COVID. And you're like, oh God, so it was, man. Yeah. And on top of that, just our just the climate in general with the previous administration, and then just everybody's so divided. It was just
you guys had riots and all sorts of shit going. We're just sitting back watching the news going.
There was a lot of social uprising going on in a lot of different after George Floyd in May. God, it was amazing to see a lot of stuff, and then it was just met with a lot of people who were trolls online and a lot of militia members and stuff. And that was what sucked because here in the Twin Cities, certain neighborhoods where friends of ours live, there was drive-bys, there was shootings, there was explosives that would be set up in alleyways, just to mess with specific communities. That's a lot of stuff that people didn't see on the news when there was just all this confusion and just constantly rolling this fire, but both those fires were started by white suburban kids or people from other states. That's what a lot of people don't even know, is that, like, you know, sure, there's people from here that would do some looting because it's just like, fuck you, I'm going to steal some shit. Like, I'm pissed right now. Like, what? I'm not worried about Target, you know, like losing any money. I think they have insurance, you know, I think they're covered. Like, I'm not too concerned with them. But anyways, like,
so we don't have, in Australia, we don't have guns, you know what I mean? So it's a totally.
Oh, I know. You had, what was it? There was a buyback in Australia and then it was destroyed.
Years and years ago. Like there's a bit of gun crime at the moment, you know, because there's a bit more gang. We got bikie gangs here. We've got Middle Eastern crime gang. We've got different, like, minority has a different own crime gangs, you know, and there's a bit of that going on, but really, really minimal compared to what you guys have. You know, you really, you know, we might have occasionally there's a shooting. No one ever gets killed because no one knows how to shoot a gun anyway. You know what I mean, in Australia. So, but occasionally someone, you know, misfires or aims the wrong way and shoots someone. But doesn't happen often. But, you know, we came together in COVID. You know, Australia, I think we really got scared because we saw the rest of the world, like Italy, you know, being Italian, I was watching, turn to shit really quickly. And we started freaking out over here. And being far from everyone else in the world, like we're a bit of an island, you know, we always had that sense of, hey, we're going to be the last nation if a nuclear war takes off. We're still we'll have a couple more days left, you know. And it's sort of felt like that. But it's been good. But you know what? It's been a good time to record. I think during COVID, I recorded that much shit. You know, I've got stockpiles of tracks lined up. That was the good thing about it. You know, I set up my studio in the laundry.
Yeah.
I'd spend hours and hours recording, you know. That was the beauty of it. Yeah.
That's good.
I just said to the guys, I said, I'm not singing about COVID, you know, fuck that. That's one thing I don't want to talk about. I don't want to have COVID in any title, you know. All these noise acts started coming out, COVID this, COVID that, COVID that. Fuck me dead. We've seen enough COVID. It's all right. My TV's blaring COVID.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's too perfect though. I mean, the whole, like I said, the whole like climate and the whole like surrounding the settings, like the build up to it is perfect for any kind of project, you know, like, you know, like lockdowns and like, you know, occupation by like, you know, military. And then it's like all these things. What is wild. Like, it's like so dystopian.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, it's right at the beginning when people were doing these like kind of projects, you know, like a different series, like when people were jumping on those quick, like Straight Panic and a handful of others, it was legitimately like really good. Like a lot of people's like, you know, and like people are still pumping out shit. But then like I fell into the category of like after this summer, I hit a wall. Like I was having such a hard time being creative. And I think I missed that tandem collaboration in person, you know, even if it's just hooking up some synths and going off from one another. Like I miss that. I think that's what's going to trigger me to get back into the creative juices of going again, you know.
I hope people do get triggered back into it, because the thing where I've been talking to a few guys, like some people are so like, I've had such a good time staying at home. Like I'm getting old now, you know, mate. So like going out every weekend isn't a thing, you know. I've got kids, but you know, like I've been talking to, you know, the younger guys and you know that still go to shows every weekend, and it sort of got to a point where, you know, I don't feel lazy, but I sort of like staying home. So even if there is a show now, it's like, oh, I haven't been to one for 8 months. Do I really want, you know? And I hope that doesn't happen, because our scene here is really small. You know, it's tiny. You know,
I hear. Like, hope it doesn't affect it in a negative way. Where I think people are going to be so thirsty though too that like once they go to their first show, they're going to be like, "Fuck, I got to set up a show now." You know.
I do hope. Like I played in this band called the Blurters, and I think we played. It was a pretty risky show. We played one of the last shows in Sydney. Really, that really was. Yeah, it was pretty much the last show in Sydney. It was Punk's Picnic. There wasn't a lot of people at this one. People were starting to panic.
Yeah,
I was wearing one of those, you know, those contamination suits and a mask, being a smart ass, you know, and but when we left the show, I remember my wife saying to me, "Oh, was that a good idea?" You know, we'd had COVID cases, you know, in Sydney. It was just starting to ramp up, and a week later we locked down, you know, and our drummer rang us and he goes, "Man, I'm really, really sick." And I'm like, "Fuck, dude, you know, don't tell me that." He had a common flu, thank fuck, but
yeah.
You know, there was a slight bit of panic. You know, it was fuck,
Totally.
this could be real. You know what I mean?
Big
Because at
time.
the start, it was just like a movie.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, definitely. I agree. I mean, that was the amount of times we were washing our hands. I mean, I still do, but it's like, you know, like you're still learning about this thing that's changing and shit. And you're like, man, it's airborne. Like, what if I happen to get into a patch outside? Could I get it that way? You know, like when it was, you know, like, cause at the time we just only knew it was like droplets and such. So
yeah. I mean, I wore rubber gloves to the post office for a few months. Like there was
I
about
didn't do
3
that.
months there.
I
Yeah,
didn't. Yeah.
I freaked out.
The way that I looked at with gloves is like, pretend that you're touching something like raw chicken, you know, like if you touch one thing and then you go and touch other stuff, you're just spreading it everywhere. So it's like you would have to take off that pair of gloves, put on a new one, to then touch something else.
I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
Oh man, I had a box of 100 gloves in the car. Just everywhere. There was fucking gloves everywhere and masks.
Oh man, it'll be nice to be able to go somewhere without a mask. You know, like that's why I'm excited about summer. You know, and everyone will be ecstatic again. But I guess I don't know. Is to kind of wrap up, is there any releases that we should be looking out for? Like you were saying, you're in a few projects. So is it going to be, you're going to be doing more shifting from MILAT, or are you going to be still putting out?
Not really. Like MILAT's always going to be the primary thing. You know, it's the thing that's exactly how I want it to be. You know, when I do my noise, that's what I want it to be. The thing with MILAT is there's so many of us and everyone's doing shit. You know, everyone's in another band or 2 bands or fucking 6 bands. Yeah. And we used to always come together and record as a unit. It's been really tricky. You know, now there's a little while there when some of our releases weren't up to scratch, I think, because we were just sending it around to different studios. Oh, I've got this guy, and it just wasn't happening, you know, for a while there. But we've sort of reined it back in and got it together again. Look, MILAT's got a split LP coming out soon with a sort of like a goth punk band in Australia that's pretty cool called Death Church, 100 LPs. After that, we're sitting on a couple of albums we haven't released yet. Maybe one, maybe 2, I'm not sure.
Are they in your garage?
Yeah, it's been released in the UK. I just haven't released it in Australia yet. I'm just trying to think what format I'm going to put it on.
Oh, okay.
But we are going to start recording. I'm going to record. I'm not going to do a lot of splits and that shit this year. I'm going to record 3 straight up full length CDs.
Cool.
Thinking of putting one out as a double CD. We're going to call it Life Never Ends Well. And then we're gonna sit on a CD's worth of shit, you know, for another label or someone, you know, what you guys, you know, might send it to you guys, see if you guys want to do it.
Cool.
But in the meantime, I do have a lot of my other projects at the moment. Scrubber is the one I do with my wife. There's been a lot of interest in that solely because, you know, I like it. I think it's quality noise, but it's got a female vocalist, you know, and that's no one's doing that in Australia. There's one other act, to a nunsploitation or a military position. There's 4, but it's you know, it's few and far between. You know what I mean? The other day I put forward to these old school guys called Ebola Disco. They put a record out on Tesco, and I asked them if they want to do a split with MILAT, and they were like, yeah, let's do it. You know, they rarely record. They've been around for 20 years, and they only do very minimal recordings. And then they heard Scrubber, and they said, oh, fuck MILAT, can we do it with Scrubber?
Sure, makes more sense too.
Fuck yeah, man, let's do it, you know. That's awesome. I've got that. Then I'm doing another act called Bloodshot. This one's pretty cool. It's quite nasty, different type of vocal style. This guy's an old death metal singer. He's screaming his guts out over the top. Nice. You know, it's more grinding than MILAT. But, you know, the thing with MILAT is it's got that name, you know. In Australia, MILAT's the worst serial killer we've ever had. So whether or not one of my acts might sound better than MILAT, you can't top the franchise or the gimmick that it is, you know what I mean?
Sure. The name.
People buy it for the fuck of it sometimes. I swear people buy our shirts and they probably don't even like the act, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's one of those things, you know. And we stole the idea of Suckly Fugan, you know what I mean? I saw the name, went, who's Australia's serial killer, MILAT? Rang Sean, our vocalist, said, I'm going to start a noise act, MILAT. He didn't need to know anything. He goes, I'm in. That's distasteful.
We got to start.
Yeah, and we've copped heaps, you know. We've copped fucking heaps, you know. But
yeah,
it's been a double-edged sword. On one end, it's been amazing for us. Like everyone's like, you know, you type in MILAT serial killer and someone's looking at our link, you know what I mean? And people get interested. But then on the other hand, we've got a heap of people that like, you know, I'm surprised we haven't been cancelled in a way, you know, or
Sure.
some news reporters got onto it and go, who are these arseholes, you know?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for one of those current affairs shows to knock on my door, you know, get fucked. I'll tell them to get fucked, you know?
Nice.
I'm waiting for it. But yeah, we've got a bit going on. We are going to slow down this year. You know, I think we pumped out a lot last year. I think we got to a point at one stage where there's definitely one record or two records where I think our heart wasn't fully in it. We might have rushed it. You know what I mean? We were getting ahead of ourselves. So I really want to rein it back. And I want the next releases to be fucking, you know, full on, you know?
Yeah.
Like listen back to them a million times. There was a time there when we were so rushed to put out product that, you know, it'd be weeks till I listen back to it. You know what I mean? Like, and it's a bit tricky at my house. My wife doesn't want to hear MILAT full blast in the house. My kids will listen to it for 3 seconds, dance and thinks it's amazing, then start fucking crying. You know, so it's got to, you know, I've got to wait till I've got half an hour to myself to go for a drive and pump it in the car stereo, you know?
Plus, you got to do the car test anyhow, you know, when you hear something,
that's right.
you got to do the car test.
This year, a bit more thought, a bit more effort into it, you know, a bit more nastiness.
Cool.
Yeah. But I've started working on the themes, you know, it's a package deal. The themes are starting to get worked out. You know, I read certain books and steal lines and steal ideas. So it started. There's a work in progress.
Nice. We'll make sure to add links to all the stuff that you have coming out and
direct
links back to the label and everything too.
Yeah. And it's all the stuff's free download. So if anyone in, you know, watching this, go to Innercity Uprising Bandcamp and man, check out some Aussie hardcore, punk, grind, noise, whatever. It's some of the early stuff's a couple of bucks to get a download, but there's probably 80 releases there that are free download. So get amongst it.
Hell yeah. Well, thanks a ton, man. It's been
brother
good being back in touch, back and forth.
Time lucky.
Third time
lucky. Good. My wife's going, you're getting up again to go early. I go, mate, we fucked up again. We've got to go there and do some straight shooting talking.
Hell yeah. And also, we'll put a link to your track off the Damien comp as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And look, that's, you know, over here, like I've told you this before, but I'll tell it again for the viewers, mate. We got to thank you and Bob, because like being over here in this little island, Australia, it's fucking hard work. You know, we don't get the opportunity of being in Europe and everyone's trading records, and you know, you can buy Tesco records and you know, any you know, all the labels are there. You know, we've got fuck all. You know, everything's import.
Yeah.
I know the internet makes it easier, but it's been really hard for us, you know. And we appreciate you guys helping us out, especially with the DVD, man. That meant a lot to us, because the DVD we were being smart asses, you know, because we grew up, and one of our idols, the SPK, and they did their, you know, the Despair DVD. Not that it's anything like that at all, but we just went, you know what, we're going to do a 3-hour fuck you video,
awesome.
Fuck you DVD. And yeah, thanks heaps for putting that out, man. It was an honor, you know. We're very excited.
I still have the Australian version in my Xbox. It just hangs out. So sometimes when it restarts, it'll say Blu-ray, and then it just goes right up to you talking. So
it's 3 hours you can't get back of your life.
Never. That's awesome.
That's right. Yeah, no, we appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you, and we'll be in touch.
That's it, brother. That one was